All right, today is September 10, 2020. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is public, recorded, and posted on YouTube. If you have anything you want to discuss, please feel free to add it to the agenda. On the agenda today, we're first going to go over the 1.20 planning. We're going to review the items that we agreed on at the last meeting to work on for 120 and get status updates and confirm assignments. Some important dates to keep in mind. The enhancement freeze for 1.20 is going to be October 6th, which is about a month or so away. Code freeze is going to be November 12th. And then docs freeze is going to be shortly after that, November 30th. And we're targeting a 120 release on December 8th. So please keep those dates in mind if you are working on a feature. So let's jump right into it and start getting status updates. First item we have is from Hemant, CSI online offline resizing, volume expansion, fix issues.
Right, so we had a call with, we are basically blocked down, like we have fixed most of the bugs. We have 2 or 3 outstanding tickets. One is that read write many, and for which there is a PR out, it needs refactoring. Then there was a fix for volume PVC getting deleted while resize is pending. KK has volunteered to fix that one, then recover from resize failure. We had a call about that one with Tim and Jordan, and we agreed to look into the pod sizing enhancement and follow it closely. And also Tim suggested that we should consider giving quota back for terminal failures on PVC expansion, rather than the current proposal says that PVC quota is not recoverable at all. So yeah,
Cool.
that's the status. So we'll have a call tomorrow for this one. And I'm working on updating the design of the recovery from resize failure proposal, and I'm planning to schedule a call tomorrow to discuss what our next steps will be.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hemant. And let me just make sure I add this date in here. Okay, next item, so recovery from resize failures. I think you've already discussed that as well, Hemant. Next item here is Snapshotsshing.
Yeah, so I'm trying to cut a release. So we got the validation webhook and moving API to a separate Go package. Those all got merged. There's one PR outstanding, which is to change the API extensions from V1 beta 1 to V1. Right now, couldn't get hold of the PR author, so maybe I'll just cherry pick his change and trying to get that in. And then there are a couple of small issues that we need to fix before cutting the release. So it should be soon.
Cool, sounds good. Next up is non-recursive volume ownership FS group, Hemant.
I don't have any new update, but I'll have a proposal done by next week.
Cool, thanks, Hemant. Next up is SE Linux recursive permission handling.
I may not have enough time this quarter, so what I will try to do the design, but I'm not sure I can do the implementation.
Okay, I think that's perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and change this to design. And I'll just put a comment here. right, cool. Thank you for the update, Jan. Next item is a new design for volume file permission handling, considering everything from kernel changes to Kubernetes API changes. A complete redo of how we do file permission handling in Kubernetes. I don't believe we have an owner for this. Is this an item anybody on the call is interested in helping with? So this would require you to understand what the existing design is, understand what the shortcomings of the existing design are, and then propose a new design for file permissions. If you've ever found that the existing design is painful, this may be a good opportunity to contribute. Anyone on the call interested?
So who's pushing for this? Because I mean, my name is next to it as a reviewer because I'm obviously interested, but like I don't know that this is possible. I mean, the amount of backwards compatibility conflicts that you would encounter seem insurmountable. Perhaps I'm just not having done the work to think about it. I wonder if this is even possible and if it's just tilting.
Yeah, the answer may be that it's not, or that we're going to have to do some fun dances to make sure backwards compatibility works properly. Maybe introduce a whole new set of fields that you can use, but those new fields may be exclusive to the old set and may not be used at the same time, something like that.
Okay.
I think this is primarily driven out of just how many weird edge cases the original functionality had.
Yeah, yeah.
I think also this will depend a lot around the investigation for Windows. I think that's where this idea came in because the current APIs are very Linux focused. But now that we have Windows, that might throw a wrench into it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I personally don't know enough about what happens down at the Docker layer and the kernel layer with the mapping between file system UIDs and GIDs to process UIDs and GIDs, and I think that there might be a missing facility somewhere, or I don't know, something that's badly designed. But yeah, it's just like a spidey sense. I can't point to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if anybody on the call is interested but doesn't want to speak up right now, feel free to reach out to me, Michelle Shing, or any of the other leads, and we'll be happy to put you in touch, or reach out to Ben even, and we'll get started on this. Especially if you work closely with Windows or with Microsoft, this might be an important project worth taking a look at. Related is file permission handling for Windows. Looks like we're also looking, oh no, we have deep assigned here. I guess last status was Jing will ask questions on SIG Windows and KK will help follow up. Jing, KK, Deep, anyone have a status update on this one?
Saad, my understanding is that Jing posts the question in Windows SIG, and Moose from SIG Windows is going to do some more follow-ups around it, but I couldn't figure out the full conclusion on what the...
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, KK, for the update. Next item is CSI entry read-only handling. I think this was a to-do to check if Humble would be able to take on this task. Humble, are you on the line by any chance? Let's take a look. He is not. Does anybody want to take an action item to follow up with Humble?
I think I saw Humble send out a PR to external provisioner around this.
Okay.
But I think we need some more discussion on that PR.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Ben and we are having a discussion, but it might require taking a step back.
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna hopefully set up a meeting for that. Can someone reach out to Humboldt to ask him to set up a meeting?
I can do that, although his time zone is a bit problematic, but I'll see.
Okay. So maybe we'll have to do it over email.
Occasionally he does stay up late, but we'll see. I'll talk to him and find out if we can.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hamad. Okay, next item here, issues related to assuming volumes are mount points, issue number 72347. Andy agreed to work on this for the quarter. The last status update was PR is ongoing, not sure if going to fix everything. Anything new here, Michelle?
Now that the 120 branch is semi-reopened, I can probably ask Andy to rebase his PR, and we can try to get it merged early in the cycle. There is also a second PR out that is trying to fix some of the logic that determines if kubelet can delete the pod object. And I think Jing is reviewing that one, so that one should be able to merge early in the cycle as well, so that we can see if it is a stable fix.
Cool. All right, next item is storage capacity tracking by Patrick. Last status update here was we'll continue to address issues. Anything new? Okay, I'm going to mark that down as no updates. Next item is PVC inline ephemeral volumes, and the next one is CSI ephemeral volumes. Both of those are Patrick as well. Anyone have any updates on either of those? Jan, do you know what the status of these two are?
No, I don't know.
Okay, no worries. We'll go ahead and mark those as no updates and hopefully get a status update at the next meeting. Next item is spreading over failure domains. So this was a design that I think was closely related to volume groups, if I remember correctly. Xing, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so we haven't really get to talk about the placement part yet. We are still looking at the first part, how to create a group and how to take group snapshots. So we had a review meeting to go through the design. So I think there were some, in last meeting, there were some concerns regarding this API that we are proposing right now, which allows the voting membership to be changed one by one. I think there's some concern about the scalability. So I'm still thinking about that because I look at the later part of the design, which is the CSI spec changes. There I actually have a CSI spec that is making the change. You can actually give it list of volumes to modify the group. So
I think that should be sufficient. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if we don't have that at the Kubernetes API level, then we have to do the way that you suggested to kind of watch like a list of
right.
volumes, right? So we can look into that. Yeah, so maybe we can have both. Maybe we can just add that in the CSS spec first, and then yeah. So to still need some thought, and then I need to schedule another meeting to follow up.
Cool, sounds good. Go ahead and mark that as started. Next item is CSI out of tree, move iSCSI driver, fit and finish. This is actually 3 different items here: CSI out of tree, move iSCSI, and then deprecate fiber channel and flex. Michelle, do you want to give an update on these 3?
Yeah, nothing has changed since last time. I haven't been able to take a look at this.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for the update. Next item is moving out the Gluster FS provisioner and moving out the NFS provisioner. So first up is Humble. Anyone have an update on the current status of this? Again, this was the Gluster provisioner. My understanding is this is in progress. Hopefully we'll get a more detailed update from Humble next time. Kieran, do you want to give an update on the NFS provisioners? Looks like he is not on the call today. Anyone have an update on the NFS provisioners?
I believe they've all been all the code has been migrated to the new repos. So I think the next thing he's looking at is setting up the CI infrastructure for it.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to carry over the previous status. Mark these as started. Okay, next up is volume snapshot namespace transfer. Mike, do you want to talk about this? Is Mike on the call? Nope. Okay, does Shing, do you remember if we got confirmation from Mike if you wanted to continue to work on this?
I think he's interested, but just didn't get any confirmation.
Okay.
Yet.
So let's see what happens at the next cycle. We may need to find a new owner for that one. Next item is CSI volume health. Shing, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so we have cut the first release, 0.1 release. So next step, so right now we only implement this in the mock driver. Next step is to implement this in the host test driver so we can add E2E tests. Now, regarding to whether we should bring this to beta or not, I'm thinking, I think I mentioned this last time as well. Should we be looking at whether to add this information into the like PVC status? So, but that would be.
So I think last time we said let's keep it in beta for now.
Okay.
And since we need to have these design discussions, we can sort that out this quarter. And
okay.
I think
so that probably will be a different. It's going to require a. If we want to add that in the status, then that would require a feature gate anyway. So yeah, it's probably different from this one now. But this one, we do need to add E2E tests and trying to make it more stable, fixing bugs and in tests. Yeah.
Cool, sounds good. Thank you for that update. Next item is generic data populators. Ben.
Okay, I am going to work on it this cycle. I have the design in my head. I'm going to write it down and I'm going to implement it.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Next item is the object storage API. Jeff, John, Sid, Serini, anyone on the call?
Yeah, this is Srini, and actually we have updated the cap based on the review last week, and updated the revocation policy and the validation for the object references. So hopefully we will have a conclusion this week. The review is going to be after this meeting, so please join.
Cool. Thank you for that update. And yeah, if anyone on the call is interested, this is a fairly large new effort to come up with a CSI-like interface for object storage. If you are interested, there is a meeting right after this meeting on the same call or on the same Zoom channel. So if you're interested, feel free to join that and help provide feedback and shape this new project. Next item is FS group support in CSI.
This is still the same status as last week. We're still hoping to move it to beta. It needs an end-to-end test, and I haven't started working on it yet.
Okay, sounds good. Can you jog my memory as to what this feature was?
It allows CSI drivers to determine or to explicitly state whether or not they support changing FS groups.
Oh, got it. Okay, makes sense. All right, thank you for that update. Next, a set of items are CSI migration related. So we have the core component, which is responsible for migration, and then the per entry volume plugin component for migration. For the CSI core migration piece, we're still looking for an owner. Is anyone on the call interested in contributing? This is going to be a critical piece of code. It's already coded. The effort here is to move it to GA. It's already been moved to alpha and beta. So the requirement here would be to understand how this code works, look at the existing implementations, understand what the test coverage looks like, and see if we have enough confidence in the current code to be able to move it to GA. If so, that's as simple as a flag flip. If not, you know, you might find stability issues that you would need to help fix. Is there anyone on the call who finds that exciting and wants to jump in to help out here? Okay, and if anyone's too shy to speak up on the call, feel free to reach out to any of the leads offline, and we'd be happy to help get you bootstrapped on this. If not, we'll continue to look for an owner for this. This might become a blocker for the larger migration effort if we don't find an owner soon. Speaking of the larger migration effort, let's get a status update from the different cloud providers. So first up is vSphere moving to, or staying in beta. Divian, you want to give an update, or Xing, if you have any updates here?
It looks like Debian is not in the meeting. So we are still working on trying to backport some of the fixes to 6.7.3, but we have not finished that yet, so can't confirm that yet. So it's work in progress.
Sounds good. All right, thank you for that update, Xing. Next item is Azure Disk and Azure File. I'm guessing Andy's not on the call. Michelle, do you know what the status of these are?
I need to sync up with him, but last time I think azurefile was just missing, like there was one bug that was preventing it from going to beta. But I think it was mostly a matter of updating the sidecars. So I will sync up with Andy on that. Oh, but I think Hamad raised a possible concern with azurefile. I think there's one feature that is still missing. So we'll probably need to sync up with Andy on that.
Yeah, the FS group, because it applies the FS group at the wrong time, and FS group is not available in that
I'm
operation.
sorry, Hamad, you're really quiet.
I changed my microphone. Sorry, I'll type it or something.
We can kind of hear you now. Nope.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that if the can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, so if the Azure file requires FS group to do the mount, it might require some thinking on like how that will be handled.
Got it.
Because the entry driver applies FS group as a mount option, like compared to like any other driver.
Okay, sounds good. So it looks like that work is under review, and we'll get a status update on that next time. Next item is GCE, CSI Migration. So Matt Carey from our team is going to help push this along. I don't believe he's had a chance to start working on it yet. We'll give a status update here as soon as we can. And that's being moved to GA this quarter. Next item is CSI Migration for AWS. Yes, Michelle?
Sorry, I am highly doubtful that it will move to GA, but we'll probably push it towards GA.
Sounds good, so we'll put that down. And same thing for AWS, pushing towards GA. Anyone have a status update on that? Okay. So we'll leave that as we'll follow up with Matt Wong. Next item is CSI Migration for OpenStack Cinder. John, are you on the call by any chance?
I am, and I have no update. We still need to find a dev for that.
Okay.
And I'm really far removed from OpenStack these days, so I don't know that I'm really an appropriate update. So.
Got it.
However, so far as the migration of core is concerned, if someone is willing to mentor me, I might be willing to pick that up if I can get consent to put the time in work-wise. That's not this one, it's the core.
Gotcha. Okay. That is, yeah, that would actually be wonderful. So maybe if you could shoot me, Michelle Shing, an email offline, we can get you started on that.
I'll seek consent then.
Okay. So we'll leave a question mark for, I'm going to move you to reviewer here and put a question mark for owner.
Yeah.
For Cinder, and then for core, we'll say potentially you.
Yeah, I'll need to confirm on that.
Got it. No worries.
You might say I'll update at the next meeting.
Got it.
Or in the meantime, whatever.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Next item is CSI Migration Force FFS and Ceph RBD. We've got Humboldt's name down here. I'm going to guess we've got no updates on this. All right, moving on from CSI Migration, the next set of items are items that are cross-SIG owned items. We work with other SIGs to get these items done, not necessarily just SIG storage. So the first item is SIG Scalability. There was concern about frequency of mounts causing scalability issues because they go fetch API objects. And so SIG Scalability helped introduce the option for immutable secrets and config maps to address these scalability issues. It is an opt-in feature, not on by default. So if you run into scalability issues, it's something you would have to opt into. The scalability team is primarily driving this work. I haven't gotten a update this quarter to see if we're going to move it to GA. Michelle, do you know if Wojtek confirmed his?
He didn't confirm, but I would expect he intends to.
Okay. So let's say. Okay. Leave that as a maybe. Next set of items here are for SIG Apps. First up is addressing the issue where if you have a stateful set that creates a bunch of PVCs, you delete the stateful set, the PVCs today are not going to be deleted, which is frustrating. Dave Smith, I believe, was assigned to work on this. Shing, do you know what the status update here is?
This is, yeah.
Behind, actually.
Go ahead, KK.
Yeah, so basically, I've updated the KEP with after addressing some comments. There is one scenario which we need more discussion. That is a scenario where manually, if a pod gets deleted, what our behavior should be. So once that is addressed, most of the major comments would get addressed with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your work on this, KK. I'm glad to see that it's moving along.
So this one, yeah, so the next one, the volume expansion one, I have not yet, there's no update on this yet.
Okay.
I have raised up KEP. There are few concerns from Heman's discussion, but no updates further on that.
Cool, thank you for that update. Next item is execution hook for application snapshot. Shing?
Yeah, so yeah, we are trying to bring this to Java. Let's see how it goes. So I'm going to open an issue. So this will be, is this owned by SIG Node or is it jointly by SIG Node and SIG Storage?
I think it's,
I'll just put both.
Yeah, we've got SIG Node on there, we've got SIG Apps, so I think there's
SIG
joint
Apps
ownership.
too? Okay. Okay, maybe I will just put all three there and see. Yeah, so Xiangqian and I are working on a CAP, and then we will bring this up in the next SIG Node meeting. It's next week, just to give them an update that we are working on this. So basically, will be so the API will be the same as what we have proposed in that Google Doc, and then implementation is going to be we're studying that in a controller first with no signal changes. to begin with.
Cool. Sounds good. And I hope SIG node doesn't bring up any new surprises here.
I don't know.
So
I hope
let's
so.
see, fingers crossed. Last item here is an edict from SIG architecture. They have asked us to move Kubernetes utils mount to its own independent repo. And so I think this is mostly complete except for adding new end-to-end tests and updating the Kubernetes repos to point to the new repo. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, this is the mount utils, right? This is Srini.
Go ahead, Srini.
Yeah, actually, thanks to Michelle that the first PR is merged, but now I created another PR to move basically search and replace of the utils mount to mount utils. It's a large PR because it's having a lot of files that change across SIGs. So hopefully if that goes through, it's built and I ran ETE, so it should be fine. But there are two external dependencies too, like C-Advisor uses utils mount, and then Azure, I think, uses utils mount. So those are not changed in the new PR, but we need to inform those SIGs to, or the owners of those repos to use the new mount utils, I guess.
Would it be okay for you to update those and give them kind of just put them as reviewers on the PR?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
That's against their repos, right? Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. Thank you, Srini, for that update. Sounds like we're making good progress here. All right, thank you everyone for the updates today. Next up on the agenda, PRs that need attention. We've got one here. Let's take a look. Does anybody want to speak to this one?
Oh, yep. Basically, I can share a few words. Basically, it is a small change in volume expand controller, and we have a corner case. After CSI migration, we are recreating storage classes with the same name, but with a new storage class with the new provisioner, the out of tree provisioner, and this PR is just updating the volume expand controller to rely on the PV spec to get the in-tree provisioner name instead of relying on the storage class name. Basically, this is a corner case, and the API right now allows you to delete the storage class and recreate a new, completely different storage class. And yeah, it's a small PR, and I think the source of truth, at least in my opinion, should be the PV. Yeah, I'll be happy to have some feedback.
Amant, have you gotten a chance to look at this one?
Sorry, I briefly scanned this PR actually, so I think I need to take another look at it. I'll do that today.
Got it.
Yeah, I also briefly looked at it too, and kind of two things struck out at me. Like first was that it's possible for someone to recreate a storage class, but like completely change the contents of it. And that potentially in this case can cause like existing PV objects that were created using a previous version of the storage class to no longer become to be like completely valid. And then the second thing is that, and because of that, we have been sort of stating you should not depend on storage class after a volume is created. But here the resizer is depending on it because it needs to check if the allow volume expansion field is set, and that may be problematic in this scenario.
Yeah, we should have copied that field to the PV, right?
Yeah, I think that might be the better approach. But I guess the problem here is also it's kind of different from the other fields that we copy to the PV where it's really a PV specific attribute. You could argue that allowing volume expansion is a cluster-wide option that a cluster admin wants to make for an entire set of volumes rather than volume by volume.
Or argue that they'd like to be able to retroactively change it for existing volumes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Like, is allow volume expansion a sort of property of the volume plugin? Like, is there a need for it to be settable by an administrator?
Like when we spoke offline about that requirement, we discussed. I told you like initially when we proposed, when the cap or the enhancement was done, the idea was that in like certain AWS clusters, for example, the resize quota is much lower than the other quota. So an admin might not want to enable, like in a multi-tenant cluster, users to just resize their PVCs. So, and in other clusters, like they might. So that was the original idea of having this this knob in the storage class to allow that control in the hands of admin.
Would something like CSI driver be a better knob? Like, would we want the knob to be exposed per storage class, or is it just anything that's using this driver?
Yeah, I think the per storage class is it can be argued as generally like cluster wide property. So it's not, although it exists as per storage class, users haven't stopped from using like a storage class. Like if there are two storage classes, one for the same volume type and one has the expandable property and other doesn't, so as long as they know about it, they can use it, the other one. So I think the intent is more like to be per driver rather than per storage class.
So I think that implies we should move it to CSI driver object. I guess the only drawback with doing so would be the existing entry plugins.
Yeah, the existing entry plugins, we have to either like keep it enabled or like make it enabled by default for all the plugins that support it. And the knob will then only work for CSI drivers. But then the CSI driver knob is also like, it's not generally meant to be configured by admins, right? It's drivers, when they're installed, they set a CSI driver object. They created a CSI driver object. And if admin tries to modify it, some sort of reconciler will probably override admin's changes.
I guess your argument is that the admin doesn't own the CSI driver object, and if they try to change whatever the default value is, an operator or something may come along and squash their changes.
Yeah.
Isn't this question about allow volume expansion a different discussion? Right now, this PR is trying to get using the PV to check only the provisioner name.
Got
Well,
it.
I think so. This is kind of, I think the issue you're hitting kind of reveals a bigger issue that, like, you could change the storage class. Like in this case, you're changing the storage class to a driver with like the equivalent driver, but you could potentially change the storage class to a completely unrelated driver, and that is problematic.
Yeah, I completely agree that. And last week, the fact that API allows you to recreate the storage class, and you're not completely sure when you change some fields which change is compatible and which change is not compatible. I saw multiple times in SIG storage that you recommend creating storage class with the same name, but it's kind of hacky right now. The field in the storage class is immutable, and the recommendation / best practice is to recreate the storage class. And at least I find it confusing. And yeah, but our change, which is unrelated change, but this week we changed our volume binding mode from immediate to wait for first consumer. And yeah, thanks to Michelle for making sure that this change is compatible. This is just an example, like you have to deep dive in the code to check whether this is safe.
Yeah, I think moving forward, the guidance that we've given to developers is that if you introduce a class object, ensure that any object that is provisioned using that class object does not depend on the original object after provisioning. And so what that means is copy in, you know, whatever information you're going to need for the future from the storage class object to the PV, for example. And so Cozy is doing exactly that in its design. I think in general, we should try to follow that model. This one is a little bit tricky because it's not necessarily a per volume specific option. It is something that a cluster admin would want to set at a cluster level. And so we should figure out where the right home for this is before moving resize to GA.
So if we make this per driver level, what if the driver supports, let's say, both block and file volume, and one supports volume expansion, the other one does not? Then you can't differentiate them anymore. You can't use a
But I think
class.
That's even a problem with where the field is today, right? Because in storage class, there's nothing in there that says this storage class is for a block volume and this storage class is for a file system volume.
It is not, but you can create different storage class. You can add other attributes yourself. You know what that is, right? Your driver would know what that is for.
Generally, do people do that though? Like I think most clusters, they have generally one storage class. They don't define different.
No, we do have one. We have one driver that supports both. I think some driver even support different storage systems.
How do you control the usage? Because if you have something that's provisioned as block, you can ultimately use it as file, right? How do you differentiate that in the storage class?
So yeah, so I think it's mostly, I think right now is like by like access mode or something like that.
So you mark it as like read write only and assume that read write only is is block or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think just thinking there are use cases, and also I know there are some CSI driver they actually support multiple different storage systems. So then that would be even more possible. Different storage systems.
But I guess those drivers don't have control really over like what users set when they create the storage class, right? Like the drivers can't enforce it.
So that would be the admin would have a way to create different storage class, and then somehow it has a way to differentiate. I don't know exactly.
I think the key here is if a user requests a PVC with access mode read write mini, a storage class might the controller might provision a file implementation, versus if they request read write once, it would do a block potentially. If I were to implement it, that's what I would do. I would more likely to create multiple storage classes so that it's more obvious to users, of course. But the reason you might want to make it the same storage class is quota is extremely painful with storage classes.
So there are other parameters which some of the storage classes uses, which eventually determines what kind of, whether it's a block or file. That approach is also used. Like you give us queue name in the parameter, like for example in Azure, you give us queue name that determines what eventually, whether it's a block or file.
And so I think what I'm hearing is there is a need to be able to allow volume expansion at a per storage class level rather than a per plugin level. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
So given that and this problem, anyone have a proposal on how to move forward on it?
So the origin.
Do we? Sorry, go ahead.
So the ConfigMap property feature, which you had mentioned, Saad, does that in any way help us here? If we have such thing where PVC can point to it, could this go into one of those, like the ConfigMap?
I think the ConfigMap approach was beneficial when we wanted to have a user be able to override a storage class parameter per kind of usage. So I don't think it would help in this case. This is kind of a different problem where we have a value in storage class. It seems like folks like it where it is, but you have this edge case of, well, after your volume is provisioned, you shouldn't be depending on the original storage class for anything, but in this case, it does. So I guess one option is that we do what we recommend for other such fields, which is copy it into the PV object and use the only the PV object after the volume is provisioned. But what that implies is after a volume is provisioned, allow volume expansion becomes a per volume setting. And if a cluster admin wants to change it, changing the storage class would no longer be sufficient. They would need to go and find all the PVs, update all the allow volume expansion per PV.
Do we need to think about some sort of like a policy object that is updatable and that volumes can continue to refer to after creation time? Because the storage classes, we see this over and over, where the storage class is like, okay, this is what I want at creation time, but once the volume is created, I forget about that thing, and it's like, well, what if I want to? I see this with QoS, right? You have a bad QoS policy or a moderate QoS policy, and you want to change it later. It's like, well, you can't just go change a storage class. You can't retype the volume. You kind of just have to tweak that volume. If there was an object that the volume referred to that you could mutate, some sort of a policy object that lived apart from the storage class,
that's an interesting thought.
It would have many uses, I think, for tweaking volumes, that existing volumes.
I thought the ConfigMap approach, when in the context of that performance, IOPS and throughput discussions, was indicating to the same kind of thing, where instead of having a static storage class, we refer to a ConfigMap which can be modified.
I see what you're saying.
Yep.
I'll say that if you take quota into account, this also becomes hard and complex if you have some sort of policy that's loosely associated as well.
Yeah, like the implications of allowing someone to change the QoS policy when you have quotas on your storage classes for different QoS policies becomes a nightmare, because now you can sort of work around the quota system by changing some policy. And you want to give the admin veto power over that, but there's no obvious way to do it other than just a blanket, you can't do that kind of a statement.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left. I think this discussion is going to be take a longer time. Maybe as a next step, we set up a one-off meeting to discuss this. Does anybody want to take the action item for that?
tomorrow we have I have not set yet, but tomorrow we'll have a resizing discussion anyway. So maybe we can put this on agenda for tomorrow.
Okay, that would be perfect. And is it Ismail who is the person who started this?
I think we can take this PR as separate from the discussion. Like we can merge this or review this PR, and then the discussion needs to happen regardless of the outcome of this review.
Okay, let's discuss that at the resizing meeting tomorrow. Ismail, can you join that meeting tomorrow?
What time is it going to be?
Let me see. So tomorrow we have 12, like same time as today, actually.
This time slot
yeah?
works for me.
Okay. I don't see anything else in the calendar, so I think it should work. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this general discussion about allowing volume expansion is related to this PR, because right now this usage that I'm right now modifying is for getting the provisioner.
I think what Hemant is saying is it might be sufficient, and we'll go ahead and merge that, but let's decide it at that meeting.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We're at the hour, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks. And for folks that are interested in sticking around, I'm going to end this meeting, and we're going to start the cozy meeting right after this. All right. Take care.
See you guys there. Thanks.
Bye.